Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Careers Podcast. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Claire Martin. I've talked with a lot of different people on this podcast, and many of which have been in the industry for many years, some of which have been in the industry for a few years. And there's so many people out there that are just getting started. And even those stories are ones that I want to know and hear and then share on this channel. So, Claire Martin's story is very much like that. Claire has just recently really gotten involved in filmmaking. Claire's background is a stage actor, and just recently Claire has taken the step to get behind the camera as a PA as well as a focus puller. I really enjoy just learning what it's like to begin in acting as well as in filmmaking in this area. It's amazing, Claire's story and how so many other creatives have been involved in just giving young filmmakers new opportunities. And that is one reason I love the Birmingham creative community, and that is one reason that I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will as well. Check it out. All right, well, Claire Martin, thank you so much for being on Creating Creators Podcast today. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Tell me, before we get started, I want to know a little bit about, well, actually, let me back that up a little bit. When I first saw your name come up, I think it was with Bravel Bariki, a project that he was a part of. I think there was like a long list of all the people that were involved in this project. And then I know whenever I reached out to you, I think there was actually two people that did a similar thing. I reached out to you and I reached out to another person, and both of which were like, hey, I don't really know why you'd want to talk to me.
Yeah. I was like, this is either some scam or he doesn't know that I haven't done much.
No, definitely. Well, first of all, I'm never really sure what all people have done. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, there's some people that I've followed for years. I mean, I think of Dustin Harrelson. I've followed him since he was in college and sort of the work that he's been doing. So people like that, I'm a little bit more aware of, but more and more I'm realizing that like the videography, film, just creative industry in general, whether it's graphic design and 3D animation, like all of that kind of stuff in the Birmingham area is a lot bigger and broader than I ever imagined.
Oh yeah.
It's
surprising to me too.
Well, Bravel is one of those that I think from him, he sort of broadened my scope pretty quickly with a lot of the people that he works with and that he was already connected with. It was pretty neat. It's almost like there's like a western side of Alabama and an eastern side of Alabama with the kind of groups, I guess, that sometimes work. Who are some of the people that you currently see yourself working with often?
I've worked with Balin Wood a lot. I've worked with Maximus Tatum a lot. I've worked with Bravel once, I think. I was on I worked as a PA on Max's pilot, Haunted Henry. And I can't remember. I can look. I can't remember if Bravel was on that or not. But
I think with him it was the
spec ad.
It's a spec ad for Second and Charles. That's what it was. Yes, yeah. That's where I saw it, and I guess that was the list that I was referencing earlier.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a couple of questions that I do want to prompt you with. I do a little bit of social media stalking before these in preparation, so I apologize if any of the photos. I hope none of the photos that I bring up are like ones that you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that was still out there kind of stuff. But anyway.
The bottom
So
one with me and the llama was, I think I was like 17. It was so long ago.
and where was that? I think you were in like I think it's a thrift store, isn't
I
it?
was in
Yeah.
America's thrift store in Alabaster.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been in there many times. Yeah, that's actually right down the road from my office. So I live. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
I work I work for Shelby County Schools, but our
Mhm.
office is right there in Alabaster. So,
Oh, yeah, I've
um,
lived in Montevallo my whole life, so I've been going to that store since I was literally a baby. So,
nice. Now, what year did you graduate from Montevallo High School?
I actually was homeschooled
Oh, okay.
my entire life. I have 5 younger siblings, and we all were homeschooled. I actually graduated at 16. I got all my
Oh,
stuff
wow.
done. Yeah, the last little bit of my school, it took probably 3 or 4 hours because I just did so much at one time just to be able to be done with it, because I wasn't doing much else. Yeah, because we used a homeschool program that didn't have like co-op and stuff where you do classes with other like homeschooled people. It was just
Right.
us. And the last few years I kind of taught myself, especially with math, um, which was interesting. But yeah.
So, was your family, was that something that your parents always wanted to do? Was it more for, I've seen a lot of like religious
Oh
groups
yeah.
that it's more for that kind of reason that a lot of people do the homeschooling. What was
Yeah.
their background?
So my mom and dad got married and they didn't have kids for like 7 years because my dad got a master's in psychology. So my mom worked, he had a full ride to Birmingham Southern that just closed actually.
Yeah.
Um, and he had a full ride there. So my mom worked while he went to college and didn't have me till like 7 or 8 years later. But my dad told my mom, we're not having kids unless you homeschool them. So she hasn't worked since she had me, which is 23 years now. So yeah, but they're pretty religious. I'm not really anymore. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
everyone I knew was homeschooled. I didn't have many friends because we only went to church, but
Yeah. So what sort of pushed you into the sort of video space in general or film space?
Okay, so at the church I used to go to, we had a lady who did uh, theater productions. And they were pretty big productions for how small the church was. Like every year, we'd start in February and the show would be in May. And we would literally, like the stage was obviously pretty short. We would build the stage up and longer and we'd have full productions of stuff. Um, I did that and I kind of taught myself how to act. And I was always too subtle for theater, like I always have been. And then I work with Montevallo Main Street Players,
Yeah.
which is a theater group in Montevallo. We're based in Parnell Memorial Library. I'm actually on the board now, but I've been doing that since I was 17. 15, sorry, 15. I've been doing it with them 8 years now. I'm actually stage managing A Wrinkle in Time right now. But I kind of taught myself how to act, and then I went to bigger theater stuff. Um, and everyone I worked with was adults at the time, and I was always the youngest. So it was kind of, you know, it was very exciting for me because it was one of the first things I had ever done by myself without my siblings, just because we've always been like this. People are like, "How are you and your siblings? Y'all never fight." I'm like, "Well, we only had each other."
If you fought too
But
much, then you were all alone.
exactly, exactly. So, I started doing that. I really like it, and I've watched so many movies. We used to get. Do you remember when Netflix used to send discs, CDs? So
Yeah.
my dad used to get those sent in, and then he'd burn them onto empty discs. And so we've watched movies like my whole life, like a lot. He used to. This is very interesting. He used to cut out, like when we were really younger, he wanted us to watch like the movies he likes, so he would cut the bad stuff out. He'd spend hours just going through frame by frame and cutting out stuff we couldn't see. And so I've always liked, acting and stuff. Um, but I was always too subtle for theater because you have to kind of be big and it's got to be
Yeah.
dramatic. And I was always very grounded in reality and stuff, and I couldn't do the dramatics because I didn't like understand why, you know? It was supposed to be like that, but and I started, let's see, 2020? I think 2020. I started, or 2021. Beginning of 2021, I started going to Acting Out Academy in Birmingham,
Yeah.
run by Meg Dusner. Love them. But I started taking classes there, and it's like you get a scene and you learn the scene, and then you get up on camera and you do it on camera, and then she gives you like critiques and stuff. It's very good. I progressed so far and learned so much in such a short amount of time. I started in February, or January or February, and then they have a film camp in June, uh, like a summer film camp where you can, like, it's a whole 5 days. Monday through Thursday, it's all like 6 classes, different, very big teachers and stuff fly in. Like, we have one of my other coaches, Deborah Lemon, she flies in from California. We've had a voice actor, Brian Bremer, who has done it every year since she started doing it. And I did that in June, got my agent. She saw me beforehand. I'm with Align Stars. So Barbara Divisek, she saw me because I was working at the camp. I wasn't actually in it. I was like a counselor, so I took the kids where they needed to go and made sure they didn't, do anything they shouldn't be doing. So she saw me and she was like, are you an actor? Like, I like your look. I don't have anyone on my roster that looks like you. Are you an actor? And I was like, yeah. She goes, okay, I can't wait to see your scene. I was like, oh my gosh. And I did my scene for her. She was the very last person I did it for. And she actually came up to me afterward. And she was like, I just want to get to you first before anyone else contacts you and say that I want to sign with you. And I left the classroom and I started crying because it was crazy. You know what I mean? Because it was such a short amount of time from starting class to actually doing it, like getting an agent and stuff.
Yeah. Where is the actual camp held at?
It's actually different places. It's
Okay.
been, this year it was at a school. I can't remember where exactly it was, but
In the Birmingham area, though?
yes, in the Birmingham area. And on Friday, agents, casting directors, and managers fly in. And every single person, even the adults that work the camp, get to do a scene in front of everyone, which is really cool. Like, we did one, the first year I did it, Mark Fincannon, the casting director, came. And he really liked my stuff, and I ended up auditioning for the show he casted, The Resident, 5 different times. And every single time they went with someone different. Like, it's when you get that far and when you get an audition, you've already kind of won the room. Like, you've already, they like you, they want to see you. And you send in your audition, and there are so many factors. Like, it's not ever that you're not good. There's just so many factors that can make it to where you don't get the part, right? Like, every single time I sent an audition, I went to producers twice. I got pinned once for it, which means it's between you and like 2 other people. But it can be so many factors. Every single time they went with someone that looked different than me. So either younger, older, taller, shorter, had different hair. There's so many minor things, especially when you get to producers, where they're like, oh, well, I wanted someone with this look. I like this look better. Even though you might be a better actor, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get the part. You know what I mean?
I can imagine Yeah, I can imagine that can be a hard lesson to learn
Oh, it's
initially because it feels like rejection every time, even though they're
mhm,
not necessarily rejecting your skills. They may be it's less about rejecting and more about like the selection of specific aspects that maybe are subtle or even things
mhm,
that are things that you can't change at all, like physical
exactly.
traits that are completely locked in.
Exactly, because they could go with a different race, they could go with literally anything else, and it is hard. Like, it's hard to remember that it's not because 'cause you're not good, but they just it's kinda out of your control. You could be the best ever, and you're not necessarily gonna book all the time, especially recently. When I first got signed, I was doing an audition minimum every 2 or 3 weeks, like, minimum. Sometimes I get 2 a week, 2 or 3 a week. But recently it's been super slow, so no one has really been getting anything. So the acting strike happened, and then we got over that, and then the economy got bad, and no one has any money, and then there was that potential kind of crew strike or something. I don't actually know what it was, but everything's been slow. Like, I saw my agent in June, and she was like, "I'm submitting you for stuff, but there's nothing. Like, nothing's
Mm.
happening." It's just been very slow, which has been very discouraging for everyone, but it'll pick back up. It's just the time. It'd probably be not till 2025 after the
Mm.
election and stuff, because no production companies have any money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's not a time for many people to actually risk money whenever you don't really
exactly,
know what's going to happen come November
exactly.
and January. So
Mhm.
let me. I'm doing a really bad job with my slides, which at times I do a really bad job by sticking too much to my slides, and
I
other
got
times I do a really bad job of ignoring them
you. Sorry, I'm
entirely.
just
So
rambling at this
no,
point.
no, no, you're doing a great job. But I do want to know, like, so the slide is just who is. I think. Do I have that spelled right? Yeah. Okay. And I put your middle name in this because I did see it on your. I don't have your name spelled right. Claire is missing an e. I just realized
Yes,
that.
correct. It's
I'm
okay, I
sorry.
didn't even notice.
I'm awful at spelling anyway. So, but anyway, so the slide says who is Claire Elise Martin, but who do you when people just I guess ask what you do or just in general ask about you, what do you
Mhm.
typically say? How do you describe yourself?
Like, my job or just kind of
Yeah.
myself in general?
Well, I would say your job in general. Like, what is it that you do?
Well, right now, I'm head cook at Timberline Golf Club in Calera.
There, yeah,
Surprisingly, they have a restaurant in there.
yeah, yeah.
Crazy, like, we'll have people get off work and come and eat. Like, "What are you guys doing here? This is a golf course." But, obviously, I tell people that, but I'm also I say I'm an actor, and I do stuff in film. That's what I wanna do, for my career and the rest of my life. And people are always like, "Have you been in anything?" Like, they've heard that 100 times before, "I'm an actor." And
Right.
then it never goes anywhere, you know what I mean? They're like, "Yeah, sure, you're an actor, okay." You
Yeah.
know?
What right, I've seen you behind the camera and I've seen you, on sets, at least in some of the social media stuff that I've seen. Like, how much of that is because that's sort of something you want to do, or does that feel like it's more of a an assist to you in understanding and being better in front of the camera? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I've actually only done one thing in front of the camera so far, which I was in a short film called Grace that my friend, Sarah Hirsch did. It hasn't come out yet because 'cause they're having some audio issues with my scene specifically, which is funny. But it happens. That's the only actually on-camera film thing I've done, which is kinda crazy. I've been with my agency 3 years, but it's out of my control, you know?
Right, right.
Um,
But
sorry?
the stuff behind the camera, is that stuff that you are? I mean, are you really enjoying that? Is that a direction you want to continue going? And like at this point, do you feel like at any point you're going to need to make like a decision, or do you feel like you can sort of keep doing both of those things, like in front of or aspiring to be in front of and behind the camera?
Oh, for sure you can do both. Especially nowadays, it's hard for actors to live off of just acting, just because people are because of the strike and stuff, this casts are getting smaller for things. It's they're not wanting, especially big companies aren't wanting to take risks with not as well-known actors, because obviously if you have well-known people, you're going to get more money because more people are going to
Right.
watch it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know a single actor that lives off just acting. Um, I don't think, like, genuinely, I don't think there is, but so I want to be able to do both. That way I can stay in film and do what I love and also be able to do acting and not have to be hindered by like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But I've been PA once, and I was first assistant camera for like a single day thing. They were having to refilm some stuff, my friend Will Ryan's film, and then I was first assistant camera on Balin's spec ad. And I had a blast. It was so much fun. I was pulling focus and I was like, oh, this is so fun. I was kind of nervous though, because it was a lot of action stuff, as you probably saw, like a
Yeah.
lot of running and kicking the camera, and we're moving, which was kind of stressful, but
Yeah. It was so beautifully shot,
oh,
that
it was
especially
gorgeous.
these like sunset around the pond. But then this
Mhm,
gets into sort of the action stuff you were talking about. I guess where she's obviously the idea is sort of reading a book,
mhm.
and you step from like this almost Wonderland kind of experience to then this action detective bomb squad kind of scene. It's really cool. It was really well shot. I remember whenever I talked to Bravel on the podcast, he said what was it? I think he said that they had done a Books a Million spec ad. And then we go through this whole conversation about this Books a Million, or maybe it's Barnes and Noble. And then I get after the podcast, I look and I'm like, it was Second and Charles. Oh no.
Yeah, I think it was kind of any bookstore, but
Right.
they just put that there to be like, and this is where your title would be and what it would look like.
Right. Yeah. No, I thought it was really cool. And he told me a little bit of the sort of behind the scenes on this, just saying that
Mhm.
so much of it didn't go as planned. I think they showed up with one camera and for some reason it wouldn't turn on. They had to go get another camera. They get back and one piece is missing. You just never know what's going to happen on a
Oh
set
yeah.
in those cases. So,
Yeah,
but you were saying that your job was to pull focus on this.
mhm. Yeah, it was my first time doing it. So Balin pretty much like made the whole team in like 2 or 3 days, and they wrote it in like 2 or 3 days. But he literally texted me and was like, "Do you want to be first AEC on the spec ad I'm doing?" I was like, "One second, I'm at work. Let me ask my manager." And she let me do it. So that was good. I was very excited. I was nervous, but I was very excited. It was a lot of fun.
And tell me this, because my next, I mean, I'm doing a horrible job with the slides, but in general, my next one is sort of tell me about your journey. But I want to know, like, how did you get involved with Balin? How did you get involved? Like, how did it come about that he would have come to you and said, "Hey, you want to pull focus"? Were you already doing some work? I mean, you've talked about the stage work you've done,
Mhm,
but what was your first? I guess you did the acting in the film
mhm.
Grace. What was your first behind the scenes job you did?
I got there because Max was production designer on that short film Grace, and Jay Galloway was the director, and he was like, I was talking, and I was like, how do I get into like being on crew and stuff? And he was like, oh, you just have to ask people. And I was like, okay, cool. He was like, Max is doing something soon. Ask Max. So I ended up texting him, and I was like messaging him on Instagram. I was like, hey, if you need any help on that pilot, I'm willing to do it. And he was like, okay, you can, like, we need a PA, but I don't think, like, we can't pay you. I was like, oh, I don't care. Like, put me in, coach. So I did that, and Balin was working on it, and Brennan Martigoni was working on it. He's awesome. And there were some other people. So you've done a podcast with Kristen.
I have. Kristen Dober. Yes.
Dober. Yes.
Yeah.
She was producer for that pilot. And I got to know her, and I was like, if you ever need me again, let me know. And she was like, okay, cool. And she ended up, oh my gosh, I forgot. I did, oh my God, what was it called? I got a text, like, for the 2-day, oh my God, was it Badman? I think it was Badman. It's like an actual movie that they were filming here, around here, and they filmed it at Montevallo, like, first day, Spring Creek Farms, like,
Yeah.
Spring Creek Prop Farm in Montevallo, and I live here, so
Yeah.
Kristen, they needed a PA because they had to extend 2 days because people kept getting sick and stuff, and so like one of the people, like Kristen, was like, oh, here's some PAs I know in the area, and they ended up messaging me. It was like, hey, can you be on set today at 2? I was like, I just got off work, I'll be there. So I did that. It was the first big thing I had done. We ended up going till like 1:30 in the morning. It was a very long day. It was freezing. It was like 15 degrees outside because it was in January. And then it was the last 2 days, so I did it that day and I did it the next day. And I was PA, and I had like the radio and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, because it was like it's the biggest thing so far that I've done.
Yeah.
Considering it being like an actual, like,
sorry, you were saying, you can finish up.
Oh, that was pretty much it. Like, it was the first like big budget. Like, they had people flying from California. One of the actors in American Pie was in it. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think that may have been part of what they shot also in Helena at one point. That Sean Ashton, I think I can't remember the guy's name now, the guy from American Pie. But anyway, I got to be on one of the sets with Matthew McConaughey that he was shooting down in Columbiana at one point. That was like the biggest thing. And I say on set, I wasn't doing anything on set. I worked, like I said earlier, I worked for the school system. So I was just there because they were shooting at one of our schools. So it was sort of neat to see. It seems like movie sets, though, the hardest part of them is just how long you wait around for things. So much of it is
oh my gosh,
like they may be setting up the camera, or they may be waiting for like some certain piece to get there, and in the meantime, you don't even see the actors. Like, they're usually in their trailer or something. You may have stand-ins, and it's just a lot of waiting around for things.
Yeah, I knew it would be, but it still was kind of crazy. Like, the last scene we filmed on the first day I worked on Badman, I was in charge of getting the actors out of the room and bringing them outside and being like, hey, they're ready for you. And then they were coming in and out and in and out just because they were doing a lot of takes, and it was so cold. And they weren't wearing, like, their costume wasn't like made for that kind of weather.
Yeah.
For the middle of winter at night. Yeah. And so I felt so bad for them because they're freezing, and they would come in and put big jackets on and be like standing by the heater. And I'm like, okay, they're ready for you. And they're like, okay. Pull their jacket off and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of just waiting around.
Do you feel like there's a lot of opportunities in the Birmingham area to get involved in film early on right now?
Oh yeah, especially, I hate saying it, but one of the biggest parts is knowing people, because I would have never done anything if I didn't previously know Max or previously known Sarah for her short film. You kind of have to know people. It's, but you have to not be afraid to reach out and be like, hey, like, if you ever need someone for this or this, I can do it. Let me know. Stuff like that. Like, after the spec ad, I messaged Prevel and I messaged kind of everyone that was on it that worked there. I was like, if you ever, need anyone for anything, let me know because I'll do anything. I really want to do more like first AC. I had a lot of fun doing that.
What's the hardest part of doing first AC, especially with focus pulling specifically?
So you have the way we did it on the spec ad was I have to they had the thing and it would like kind of buzz, like vibrate when you got to the right shot where it's in focus.
Yeah.
But that scene where she's like kicking and the scene where she's in the freezer, the bomb scene where she's defusing the bomb, we were in a freezer
Yeah.
in a warehouse. It was so cold. But I
I
kept having to go
bet.
back because she kept moving in a wrong place, like in a different place every time. So my setup for the focus was not all the time accurate. And you can hit a button and it's like it'll show you what's in focus and what's not. But it was very difficult. I had to like kind of lock in and be like, especially outside, the outside bit, in a field. That's actually someone I know, Casper. It's a field. It's like his family's land. Which even that we knew someone, so we got to go film there. It was difficult because it was sunny, and it was so sunny I couldn't see the
Oh
when
yeah.
I pushed the button to see what's in focus, I couldn't see it, and I could barely see her. So I'm like, this because it was so bright outside.
Yeah. I so I don't shoot first of all these kind of productions at all. I mean, usually the kind of stuff I
Mhm,
shoot is interview type, situations where we're inside, usually controlled lighting for the most
mhm,
part. Um,
right.
the person's not moving. We've got autofocus usually. Even if I'm doing like event coverage, I usually do autofocus. But
Mhm,
I've always had such a hard time anytime I've tried to switch over to manual, especially using like the built-in monitor. You're wasting your time, I feel like. But even whenever I get an external monitor, none of them seem good enough to really see, especially like focus peaking, like the red line that sort of
mhm,
shows what's in focus. That stuff's always been difficult for me to see well enough to really utilize and rely on. So I can imagine. I mean,
mhm.
especially if you're out in broad daylight, none of that seems easy. At least it usually seems like you're using your best guess to see if you're actually in focus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what helped a lot was my friend Jay Galloway. Every time I've been on set with him, he was on set for Grace. He was on set for Haunted Henry, and he was actually on set for Badman as well. They pulled him in for first assistant camera, like one of them, because they had a camera and B camera at one point. And so I would go watch him, and he'd talk me through everything because he like wants to like he's like, oh, I want to teach you if you want to learn, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if he hadn't been willing to like talk me through everything and let me sit and watch him and stuff. I definitely would not have been able to do it. But on the spec ad, everyone was very like helpful. And when I didn't know something, they didn't get upset with me. They were like, "Oh, let me show you," and stuff like that. Brevel was showing me how to like set up the cameras and stuff. So it worked because most of the people in like the Birmingham area on film was they're like very like we're gonna help each other, stuff like that, because it's big but it's small at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone's just so nice and willing to help each other, which I don't think happens very much in other cities like Atlanta and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's very much like community.
It definitely, I think it lends itself, this kind of industry, and I think probably in the Birmingham area, especially, it seems like it lends itself really well to be this sort of mentor mentee kind of situation in so many cases. I've heard from John Champion. He always said, or in our conversation, he said like his next big thing is just pouring into the next generation. I heard the same thing
Hmm.
from Al Agripko with Seth Newell. So many of the people that are like business owners, most of them seem like they're ready and willing to just like teach and share and mentor people. So I think it's a really great place to be if you're sort of new or young in the industry and you're like, I just want to learn and grow.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I would only know what I do now if the people here weren't willing to teach me and help me. Because there's only so much you can learn on your own, right? So,
I agree,
yeah.
especially in film. Film, it seems like I'm doing video work, like as a
Hmm.
videographer. I feel like I was able to learn most of everything using YouTube. But when you're talking like a film set, the dynamics of a film set are so much different because of the number of people and roles that everybody plays. You have to learn that by being on set and just doing it. So that's really cool that you've had that opportunity. What's one of your sort of favorite experiences that you've had on set?
Oh, that's a good question. um, I don't know. I liked the entire process of working on Haunted Henry. It was 3 days. It was just a lot of fun.
Wow,
You know,
I'm surprised
Max
that it
is
was
an
done in
awesome,
just
is
three
really great.
days.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? It was
Wow,
crazy. And we were supposed to, for like the first 2 days, we were supposed to have, at least the first day, we were supposed to have like 4 PAs, and I was the only one there. So I was running around like a crazy person. You know what I mean? Having to pick up everything and drop it off. And because we needed, like, there was a lot of things we needed, like in the moment. Oh, we got to pick up lunch. Someone's got to be here to to receive the delivery and all that kind of stuff. I just had a lot of fun. I know Kate and Will, the actors in this,
yeah.
the two main characters. Uh, I know them because they go to my acting studio. They actually teach classes there. So it was just fun to watch them do their thing, and watch all these people that I know, at least a little bit do their thing. So
Yeah.
that was
It
that
was
was a lot of fun. I liked this doing this spec ad as well. Being able to, do all that. That was fun. It was all done in one day. One day. It ended up being like, I think, a 14-hour day. It was a long while, but it was worth it.
well, and I know the trouble that they had early on probably extended that out to be a little bit longer day than anybody probably hoped
Oh,
for.
definitely. I felt so bad. We were in that warehouse kind of thing, and it was so hot in there. Oh my gosh, we were dying. It was so hot, and we kept having to go in the freezer and stand in the freezer, and then we get cold because all of the sweat would dry, and we'd have to be like, "Okay, I'm dying. We got to go out." And it was just like a back and forth of that,
That's crazy.
which
Well,
was
tell me, I want to know a little bit about your theater work and your acting work. I mean, you have done theater. You said that you mostly currently are working as a stage manager. Is that what you said in Montevallo?
yeah. I mostly did acting on the stage, and I like doing it. You see, I was a White Witch in Narnia,
Yeah, yeah.
and that was last summer. It was so much fun. I had never actually played like a villain before. It was a lot of fun. I got to yell at people and be mean. It was fun. It was hard to get there in character for that because she was so different from who I am, and it took a lot to kind of. I had to like humanize her to be able to like understand why she does the things she does, stuff like that. Because I had watched on YouTube productions of that show, and the White Witch always came off as cheesy and just kind of flat. You know what I mean? And I was
Yeah.
like, and the makeup they wanted to do and the costume they wanted me to wear at first was kind of like caricature. You know what I mean? And I was like, I can make this good, because if the villain is not done well, the show doesn't do well. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't, like, the dichotomy of the main characters and the villain, it doesn't work so much if the antagonist is kind of cheesy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so I
What
kind of
kind of, sorry, I was just asking, like, what
no, you're
kind
good.
of character difference did you really feel like you were able to bring to that?
I really I worked really hard on grounding her in, like, reality. Um, I reread the books and stuff, and I read her, like, backstory and stuff, because I needed to know the reason why she does the things she does. And I ended up, I think, playing her differently than even the author would have done it, just because she had more, like, emotions and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I watched the movie, love, oh my gosh, what's her name? I can't remember her name, but whoever played the White Witch in the movie, I watched her and I kind of took inspiration and stuff. But a lot of the lines were copied directly from the book, which was interesting considering they do not they're okay on page, but they do not sound natural coming out of someone's mouth. And so when there is something like that, you have to believe everything coming out of your mouth. Everything you say, you have to believe it, and you have to not think it's silly. Like, this is how I talk because whatever. I'm like 1,000 years old. This is how I talk. And it was hard. The first few weeks of rehearsal, I was like, Dolores was the director. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. She was like, no, I believe in you. Okay, I don't think I can. But I did it, and it was a lot of fun. That was, I think, the best show, like, in a while that I think we've done there. We sold out
One of
almost every night. It was awesome.
One of my favorite books is the prequel to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I think it's The Magician's Nephew. And that's the
Yeah, yeah,
one that
yeah.
actually tells the story of how Narnia came about, with like dropping the little
Exactly.
piece of a post on the ground, and then that grows into the light post that you see in the middle of the woods. Like all of that,
Exactly.
the Magician's Nephew, I think, is under celebrated as a book because it's such a
I
great
agree.
story. So, and to me, it made the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe better because you did know so much of their backstory. I'm trying to remember the backstory of the witch, though. I know she accidentally ended up there, but I don't remember how. Do you recall?
From what I remember, she was from a different, like, realm. Like, obviously there's Earth, and then there's this Narnia place, and there were other
Yeah,
places.
the
She was from a
land with
different place,
the world with the ponds, right?
something like that. I don't
Yeah, I
know,
think they had
but
to. Yeah.
she had an argument with
Sorry.
her sister. Her and her sister had a disagreement. She had found this, like, spell book, and one of the spells would kill everyone. And she got in an argument with her sister, something like that, and she ended up doing the spell thing. And everyone died, and she left. It was, I don't really remember, but it was something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But she killed a bunch of people. And then she ended up in Narnia and took over and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of villains now in movies, you see them. I mean, I think of like Wicked. I think of so many of the Disney movies, how they've been sort of remade
Mhm.
or prequels have been created where the villain story is told and grounded, sort of like you're saying. I think of even the movie Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, like that
Mhm.
origin of a villain seems so much more grounded in reality. It seems like it almost builds like sympathy for the villain, um,
Mhm.
because it's like they're not just this horrible person by nature. It's sort of like they've been created. They've been sort of like pushed into a corner or pinned down in some
Mhm.
way. And then out of response to that is what we see the villain as. Or in some cases, they're even misunderstood as a villain. So I think the
Exactly.
idea
Like,
of grounding her sounds really like a challenge, but at the same time, a pretty neat thing to be able to do.
exactly. Yeah, she lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
Because I had to, because villains do everything just like antagonists do everything for a reason, just like protagonists do everything for a reason. Like they have their motivations and stuff. Her when the Pevensies came to Narnia and stuff, she was angry, yes, at them, but she was also scared because they were in like the prophecy or whatever, and they were foretold to take her down and bring Aslan back and stuff. And so she was, scared. And you know, I played her, I tried to play her like how she, like if a normal person was in this position and had all this stuff and did all that, how would they be, Because she's supposed to be like 8 feet tall. And some shows they would put the actor on stilts and stuff. We have a very small stage in a community theater, so we couldn't do that.
Are you
But
8 feet tall?
no, I'm only 5'7", but you know. Um,
Close.
but yeah, close enough, I think. But I was very adamant with the director and the costume designer and stuff that there was a specific way I wanted to do it. And honestly, I wouldn't do it if they made me cheesy because it would make me sick to my stomach. I couldn't do it. Like they wanted to put me in like this sparkly undershirt, and I was like, she wouldn't wear that. She's not a princess. She's evil. So they put me in a wedding dress, which actually ended up working because there was nothing else we were going to be able to do. We can't make a costume from scratch. So they put me in a wedding dress, and I had like this kind of cape thing with red on like the inside, which was like blood. And then I had like this necklace. They had like a silver metal crown, but it dug into the sides of my head. And we ended up just pinning this like bead necklace in my hair where the jewel in the middle was red. And I think it worked. It worked so well. I was terrifying. But my sister, who does a lot of makeup, came and she only did my makeup every single show night. It took sometimes an hour. And we had to use like 4 bottles of that hairspray stuff from like Walmart to get my hair that color. Because I was like, I'm not bleaching my hair. I can't do it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Tell me about this picture down on the left side there. Is that you and another person like running through scenes?
Yes, I'm on the left and Sarah's on the right. This is a short film she wrote um, about like her mom's experience or something like that. And I was playing her best friend. We shot my scenes in one day. The set design in the back, like all those pictures and stuff, everything, Max did that. It looked really cool because it was like 80s. It was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So the costumes were so cool. It was a great experience. It was the first on-camera acting thing I'd ever done. And I was telling them the whole time, I was like, I'm sorry, this is really bad because this is the first thing I've ever done. And like later I saw Jay and I was like, hey man, I know y'all are working on those like editing everything. I was like, I'm sorry if my stuff isn't good because I was really nervous because it was the first time I had ever done it. So I got on set and forgot all my lines, all of them. It was a nightmare, but
What
we did it and it was a lot of
what do
fun. And
Sorry, what do you see sort of the difference between your experience with on stage and in front of camera?
on stage, so I have this argument with people all the time about whether theater is harder than film, like on camera stuff. Um, and with theater, yes, you get to do it over and over again. And if you make a mistake, it's not that big of a deal, but you also have 6 to 8 weeks of rehearsal time. You get to create your character, figure out who they are, practice for 6 to 8 weeks on memorizing your lines and doing everything. But on camera, you could potentially get the script a day before or
Mm.
like the day up, and you have to memorize all your stuff and everything. It's And yeah, you get multiple takes, which is the argument for theater people, where it's like you get it, you do it one time. Like, yeah, but you also have so much rehearsal time. And if you mess up one night, it's not that big a deal because you do it another night. You know what I mean? Like they both have their challenges, but theater has to be less grounded in reality, and your emotions don't necessarily have to be real because like they do, but you know what I mean? Like it's theatrical more than like on camera. The camera can see every lie. You know what I mean? Like if you don't believe something you say, that it can tell. You can tell when you watch it. Um and you don't I don't know. There's a big difference in that. I was thankfully had already kind of the way I had taught myself to act was more the way a film person would do it than a theater person. And so I went to on camera stuff. It was easier. It was a little bit easier for me to learn and stuff. But you really have to be subtle, you know. You have to feel every emotion and believe everything you say, because if you don't, the camera knows.
Do you feel like the
Yeah.
reason for that is the sort of distance? Just, I mean, when I think of a stage performance, typically, your feet, sometimes tens to hundreds of feet away from the
Mhm.
actor, um, versus a camera. A lot of times, a camera, you're talking like less than 10 feet, sometimes
It's right
like
here.
less than 10 inches, yeah. It's like it can be right up
Exactly.
on you. And so, do you feel like that's the real difference in that sort of truth of the emotion?
Yeah, and I know a lot of theater people with like theater degrees and stuff. Like my best friend has a theater degree, specifically in like musical theater and stuff. Which I can never do because I can't sing, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm sure you
um,
can.
but I ask him. It's not
Maybe
great.
not.
I'll do
I
it.
can't
I
sing.
can
I
do it,
can't sing.
but it's gonna be
Yeah.
bad.
There's need for
Um,
that too.
but exactly. But I don't want people to think that I think theater is not difficult because I know it is, but there is a difference in what the difficulty is. Because on theater, on the stage, everything does have to be big. You have to exaggerate everything, which can be difficult. It's difficult for me. I'm thankfully our theater is small and we have like 100, like 79 seats, 100 seats or something. So it's not very big. It's very small. And thankfully, I don't have to be as big because I have a very hard time doing it and still be believable. Um, like my best friend is so good at it. It's crazy, like how well he is, and I'm not as good on stage. It's a different kind of acting in a way. Like they're similar,
Yeah.
but it's also different.
Tell me this.
And I
What
don't think
what
one is
have
more difficult than the other. It's just different. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, 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 you're good. I think the internet delay, I'm not sure. It seems to be getting us a little bit, but
Oh,
tell
sorry.
me what's the best piece of advice that you have received from somebody or that you would give to somebody?
Oh yeah, that picture on the left with the like going like this. That's my sister, Audrey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there you
It's
go. I
okay.
got your
She's got a little
sister.
cameo. It's okay. Yeah, that's my second to me. I'm the oldest of six, so she's two under me. That's my sister Audrey. But we
Nice.
were camping.
I like her
um,
haircut.
what were we
It's a
gonna say?
little
I
bit
was gonna
closer
say.
to mine. So,
Oh yeah, she did. Oh, she does kickboxing. So when she was fighting, it helped to not have as much hair. So
yes. I almost grabbed a picture of her, I think, from one of the kickboxing matches, thinking that it was you because you were tagged in it. And I was like, oh, well, wait, that's not her. So, and then I saw
yeah,
this and I was like, well, maybe she had shaved her head at some point. And I guess I just assumed I should look a little closer.
it's okay. She's got a cameo.
There you go.
Oh, that's
So,
funny.
best piece of advice that you have received, or advice that you would give to somebody that's just getting started.
Um, I would say. like to actors and people who want to be in crew. Like, don't be afraid, to reach out to people because it's very hard to do it by yourself and it can be very scary. It's quite terrifying because you're like, I don't want to impose and stuff like that. But a lot of times, especially around here, people like we need people. You know what I mean? No one ever is like, I don't know you. I don't want you here. Like, I didn't know a lot of these people, and some of them I saw once, and they were like, yeah, work with us and stuff. Like Balin, we were doing the like party thing for Haunted Henry, and he asked me, he was like, what are you trying to do most more? And I was like, well, I want to direct and write. He goes, well, other than that, I was like, well, I want to be first AC, and he goes, okay, cool. I'll get you on set as first AC. I was like, okay. But don't be afraid, to reach out to people. Don't be, for actors especially, don't be discouraged if things don't happen immediately. Like, I thought that when I got an agent, I was so young and I was so new. I didn't even have my Actors Access account set up when I got signed. And I thought, oh, things are going to happen immediately now that I have an agent. I'm going to book stuff and I'm going to be so busy and quit my job and everything. Which, tells how naive I was at the time. But stuff isn't going to happen. For like 98% of people, it's not going to happen immediately. And it might not happen the times you think it's going to happen. So, and like I said before, when you get an audition, they have chosen you out of thousands of submissions and they want to see you. So it's kind of like you've already won the room because they picked you to do an audition. And just because you don't book stuff does not mean you're not good. And I would say definitely take classes. Definitely take classes. Acting at Academy is great if you live in the Birmingham area. They're awesome. They have adult classes and they have kids classes and stuff. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions, stuff like that. You know.
What you said earlier really hit home. I think the idea of just the community. I mean,
Mhm.
The Birmingham area and the people that are involved in film, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera, it definitely seems like there's a community out there that's relatively easy to get into because the people are so willing to connect with people. I mean, that's been my experience with just
Mhm.
shooting somebody a DM or just reaching out on social media in general. It seems like so many people are receptive as well as just really willing to offer a helping hand in whatever way they can.
Exactly. Not. I haven't met anyone so far in this community that's like doesn't want to work with you just because you're so new. Like they want you to learn and be able to keep doing stuff because it is a small community and they're always willing to, at least in my experience, always willing to help and stuff. Like Kristen, I worked with her once and I was like, if you ever need anyone else, she's like, I got you. If I ever see something, I'll like give them your information or I'll contact you and stuff. So yeah.
What about the acting scene in Birmingham right now? Like how broad does that seem to you as far as like the type of people, the ages, the race, the gender? I mean, like, do you see a really broad spectrum of people, as well as do you see some opportunities in whether it's commercial space or in like film space right now?
Yeah, so Goldman Casting is a big one here in Birmingham. They have like a Facebook page. You can go on their Facebook page and they post stuff for like auditions and like especially a lot of extras and background stuff for movies and stuff that come here. It's been really slow recently, but it's yeah, stuff that does come here or in this area, it's always a broad like range of people. Um, just because things have been people are getting more out of casting people that are under the norm and stuff, like fit a specific kind of thing, like LGBTQ people and stuff. There's more films with that kind of line, and they're actually casting people that identify as that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
actually non-binary, and it's thankfully recently a lot of people have been casting people that are the things that are in the film and stuff. And so no one should ever be afraid of not being like ever not be themselves just because they think they won't get as many roles. Like I will still book female roles even though I don't necessarily identify as a girl, right? And I was scared about that. And
Yeah.
this lady I know, Len Marks, who teaches, she's a manager. She teaches at the film camp and stuff. I asked her, I was like, should I tell my agent this because I don't want to not get as many roles and stuff like that just because I'm different. And she was like, no, it will actually help you because there's not a lot of people that can play that part and actually be that. Because it's kind of like it's not great. People who aren't gay and people who aren't, stuff like that, don't have like a certain disability, can't play things as authentically because they don't understand. You know what I mean?
Right.
So people should
Yeah.
never like gay people can play straight actors, but straight actors can't really play gay people because they don't know that experience. And so it kind of broadens your horizons a little bit. Um, so I just want, to tell everyone it's not like don't be afraid to be yourself because there's always
I think that
people, yeah.
I think that's a good rule to go by just in general. I mean, definitely be
Mhm.
yourself. But definitely, I can imagine that there's that fear of being. I mean, you hear the term typecasted, but then there's
Mhm.
also the idea that people might feel like. Um, I don't know. I guess in some ways there might be this case where people are either prejudiced against certain groups or they
Mhm.
feel like certain groups wouldn't be even willing to play certain roles. It may not be a prejudice thing. It may be a genuine, you know, I guess what would you say, almost like a sympathetic gesture in the sense of saying, hey, we don't want to force somebody to play a role that they don't feel like they identify with. Um, so I can imagine that. But I do think, just in general, what you were saying earlier, there's more and more of various types of characters showing up in
Mhm.
commercial. We're seeing it in film industry. I mean, people are more represented now across the board, whether
Exactly.
it's race or whether it's gender or whether it's sexual orientation, all of that kind of stuff. It seems like there's more and more representation in those spaces. So I can imagine there's more opportunity for people that identify uh, in those ways. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's definitely something that I think people need to hear and understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can still play girls even though I don't, but it like being yourself doesn't mean you can't play other things. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what's next for you? What's your goals?
I want to book an acting job at some point. I'm excited for auditions to come back. um I at my theater, I want to direct something next year because I've assistant directed like 3 shows at this point, and I think it'll be a good like learning thing for me. I definitely want to do more behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, I want to do a lot more first AC stuff for sure. I had so much fun doing that. It was awesome. But yeah, just
That's
learning
cool.
and growing.
Well, I'm sure that being connected with people like Bravel and Balin and
Mhm.
Max. I mean, obviously, Max just put out a new short film just the other day. I'm trying to remember the name of
Yeah,
it. Um,
it's so good. I
he
cried my eyes
It
out.
really was. It was good. He's just seems like he's really pumping things out right now, um, in a really impressive way. I can't
Yeah,
imagine. I mean, just looking at some of his stuff that he's done, um, I can't imagine just the mind that he has to have to be able to
exactly.
write this stuff and come up with it. And then I just saw a lot of his VFX that he does, like his
Yeah.
editing, the things he removed, the things that he
Uh-huh.
put there. I mean, he's really impressive. Not to mention, like we said earlier, like the Birmingham community, so many of the people here are really strong in what they do. So I think it's a great opportunity for yourself, for people like me, just
Mhm.
more of us to get on set or just to get opportunities. So that's cool.
Mhm.
One more slide. I want to ask you, who inspires you? Who is it that you look to for inspiration, or is there somebody that you work with or have worked with currently that really has pushed you to new levels in your craft?
My acting teacher definitely Meg Dusner. She's been awesome. Like anytime I ever have any questions or anything, I can go to her, you know. Uh I would not be where I am without her, for sure. Like definitely not. Max is very inspiring cuz he's so passionate about everything he does, and it's just very encouraging to watch cuz a lot of stuff recently that's come out, this like big production stuff, there's no heart in it. It's all just like money grabs and stuff. And especially around here, things are very like art, like it's nuanced and artistic and stuff like that. And yeah, he's definitely a big inspiration. Like every time I watch his stuff, I'm like, oh my god, you know. Balin for sure. Just pretty much anyone I've worked with recently. Um, Brennan Martigoni is very good. If I'm saying his last name right, I hope so. I've never heard it said out loud. um, just
I'm
literally
not sure.
anyone.
I think you made a really good run at it. Whether you got it
I
right or
tried.
not,
I'm
it
sorry,
sounded
Brennan,
right.
if I said it wrong.
And you
um,
worked with. I've got a picture of you with. Oh goodness, I'm gonna forget his name now. Oh come on, I've got him scheduled for next week. Brody, you got Brody
Brody.
Burgess right there beside you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I worked
yeah.
with him on
He's
Spec Ed.
Yeah, he's supposed to be on. I think it's next week that I'm talking with
Oh,
him.
really?
So I'm looking forward to it. He's been a part of some videography companies
Mhm.
over the years, and only recently have I seen him really start stepping into the film space. So it'll be interesting talking to him.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. He was fun to work with.
Yeah, he seems like a good personality. Um,
Mhm.
So, anybody else that you just want to shout out or mention right now, just as somebody that inspires or encourages you?
Um, Definitely, I have some theater people like Jake Beatty, who is at one point was the president of Montevallo Main Street Players. He actually let me do my very first show when I was like 15. I was playing like a 22-year-old or something, but there weren't many women that auditioned. And like he said, he was like, I wasn't sure, you know, because you were so young, but you ended up being so funny, you did so good. And he's definitely one of the reasons like I kept acting, just because he kept giving me
Yeah,
opportunities. Him and Gwendolyn Treptow and Dolores Adkins, they're like my theater people, and they definitely, you know, help me keep going and stuff. And then my best friend Robin, if I didn't have him, I would be definitely sadder. I wouldn't
mm.
have as much motivation. So those people are really, you know, and my mom, but everyone's gonna say that. So But yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on today on the podcast. I think, I call this Creating Creators podcast, and really the idea of just creators in Alabama and Central Alabama area.
Hmm.
I really enjoy highlighting, and I think the idea of getting people that are behind the scenes, maybe even like I've talked with people that are more graphic designers, branding people. I've talked with videographers, photographers, film. It's really neat to broaden it even into actors that just seeing the variety of people and opportunities in this area. It's really cool. And I didn't know that you were based in Montevallo, so that's really neat to
Hmm.
know
I've lived here my whole
that. I
life.
mean, I know Montevallo has they have such a strong arts community there. I mean, you got the parks with the park with the carvings. You've got the theater there at the university is incredible and beautiful.
Hmm.
The community arts, even the stuff they do there on Main Street, is so,
Hmm.
I guess, prominent and impressive. So it's really neat to hear from a Montevallo local and
Hmm.
somebody that's so ingrained in the arts there. So congratulations on that and props to you,
Thank you.
definitely.
Yeah, we had a actually the church I used to go to, that my mom still goes to, Montevallo First Baptist. It's on like the corner after
Yeah,
across from
yeah,
CVS. That really big one. Do you know the movie
yeah.
Devil All the
Beautiful
Time?
place.
Devil All the Time came and
Devil
filmed
all
here
the
a few
time.
years ago. Tom Holland
Mm-mm,
was in
no.
it, and it was a bunch of people. It's like a Netflix movie or something. But they came and they filmed here, and they
Yeah,
paid the church like $5,000 to use it as a base because they filmed across the street in like an like abandoned bar. It's like closed. I think they have something in there now, but
yeah,
they didn't at the time. And they paid us like $5,000 to use it. They had Crafty in there and stuff. It was it was crazy. And that also was like I saw that and I was like, I want to do that. Cuz I watched them
yeah.
like they had a dolly out there and they were filming and it was just so cool to watch cuz I was like 17. I hadn't done any film stuff yet. I wasn't even acting classes or anything. It was just I saw that and I was like, that's what I want to do. So, yeah.
Well, it's amazing how many people got their start in film or acting or even graphics. I've seen that originated in the church. I think the churches
Yeah.
in the area. I mean, they were always. I mean, I had my start somewhat in church as well. Um,
Mhm.
a youth pastor that was a graphic designer and also did video stuff that just sort of inspired me. And whenever I got the chance to teach Adobe, I was like, hey, I
Mhm.
know what that is because of this guy. I didn't know how to use any of it,
Yeah.
but anyway, it always seemed like churches were pushing the bounds in creative ways early on, especially youth ministries. It seemed like, just to reach people or just to stay relevant, it seems like they were pretty quick to adopt those kind of creative fields, which is sort of
Mhm.
interesting. It seems so, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you were at least begun your interest in it in some
Mhm.
ways, directly and indirectly through the church, which is really neat tie-in that a lot of people seem to have. Bravel, he got his start
Yeah,
in
he
church,
did he did, like, the
creative stuff.
camera stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, again, Claire, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It really was great to hear your story and get to know you a little bit.
Thank you, I had fun.